What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So it's been a few days, a little more than a few days, since M3GAN 2.0 came out. I haven't seen it yet. Probably not going to go see it, and it has nothing to do with what we're getting ready to cover. But I'm not surprised about what I'm hearing. I'm not surprised about what we're probably going to unveil in these couple of articles. One that, as you can see, came out a few days ago, but then an update came out yesterday. So seems to now be more and more information coming out about this, not just about the box office results, but about those who were directly involved with the film. And I found one of their quotes to be quite interesting. And we talked about this film last week. I think it was towards the end of the week. I know it was right before the film dropped, and I had mentioned I was worried, I was concerned about this film. And even when we did the trailer review reaction, I initially thought, hey, this looks pretty good. But the more we found out about it, the more we found out about the direction they took, the changes they made from the first film to this film. And again, we touched on it. I thought to myself, I don't know how this is going to play out. It's hard to start off with a film and call it, like the first film, calling it a horror science fiction, and then turning it into an action science fiction, completely abandoning the genre that made the first one what it was. And as you can see from this headline, and we're going to go through these articles fairly quickly, you can see from this first one, M3GAN 2.0 crashes at the box office with 10 million opening. What happened? So let's jump into this first article, and let's see what we can learn about the now disaster of what is M3GAN 2.0. And I tend to now wonder, this could be the last we see in this franchise. I mean, outside of any potential spin-offs, but I think overall, even spin-offs, I think the franchise could be over and done with because of the direction that they took. Now, it would be very hard for them to bounce back from this with a let's say a direct third sequel, and try to go back to what made the first one so enjoyable for many fans. So when M3GAN debuted to 30 million back in January 2023, it seemed like a new horror icon had been born. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say it was I would definitely call it a horror icon. I mean, it was a new property, a new character, a new villain, so to speak, at the time to the genre, but I wouldn't say it was an icon being born. The Killer Dolls debut movie went on to scare up 180 million worldwide on a reported production budget of just 12 million, seemingly cementing M3GAN's status as a modern fan favorite who could go on to lead not just her own franchise, but her own universe. Now, that I would agree with. I would agree just based on the numbers and based on the amount of love that the fans have for that first film. Absolutely agree. You could see yourself building a franchise off of this. Blumhouse and Universal went all in on M3GAN in the wake of that first movie's box office success, announcing not only a bigger budget sequel, but also a spin-off titled Soulmate. That film, described as Fatal Attraction with a sex bot, is set for release in theaters on January 9th, 2026, but Blumhouse may be rethinking the future of the M3GAN-verse this week. And I would wonder if that January 9th, 2026 date will hold true on the back of what has happened with 2.0. I'm wondering if they'll still push forward with this Soulmate film. Because M3GAN 2.0, well, it just crashed and burned at the box office in its opening weekend, made on a reported production budget of somewhere in the ballpark of 25 million, so that's over double the budget of the first film, with a massive marketing spend on top of that. Yep, they definitely put a lot of marketing money behind this one. So I'm wondering if that's actually closer to potentially 30 million overall, when you think roughly on the high side 10 million for the amount of marketing they put in for this film. Returning director Jared Johnson's sequel takes a Terminator 2 approach to the previous movie, ramping up the budget and the action spectacle for a follow-up that turns the killer doll of the first movie into something of an action hero. And that's the problem right there. That's part of the problem. The second article we're going to cover off on, I believe, will cover off on another major problem, and why they thought they had something as similar on their hands is beyond me. M3GAN 2.0, the lovable doll from the first movie, is brought back online to fight a greater threat, Amelia, a military-grade weapon made from the underlying tech for M3GAN. Blumhouse was hoping that M3GAN 2.0 would be their own version of a summer blockbuster, with the film paving the way for Soulmate and potentially more spin-off movies down the line. But the genre-swapped M3GAN 2.0 didn't perform as expected in its first weekend, debuting at the number 4 spot on the domestic box office charts with just $10.2 million in over 3,000 theaters. Again, I don't understand. I think it could have been a summer blockbuster in its own right. I don't think it would have been a summer blockbuster when you start comparing it to, like, we still have Superman coming out. We still have other, bigger films obviously with bigger budgets coming out that people are hyped to see. Doesn't matter if they put, the 25 million production, probably another 10 million on marketing for this. It's a niche franchise and a niche character. And again, you would have to build off of what you did for the first film. The fact that you decided to take the character and make them a hero and try to go the Terminator 2 route, that was your first and probably biggest mistake you made. And that's why this wasn't going to be a success. I don't think that's something the fans asked for, nor did they want. Let's keep going. M3GAN 2.0 debuted in theaters with just about 1/3 of the opening weekend total of the previous movie, which is never a good sign for future franchise potential. So what happened? It's a question I pose. This person, I'm assuming that obviously the author of the article. It's a question I posed on Twitter over the weekend, and the most common explanation from fans is that the genre swap, there you go, from horror to sci-fi action was a big turnoff with this one. Additionally, several fans cited the summer release plan as being a bad move for a movie like M3GAN 2.0, which opened up itself up against being swallowed by blockbusters like F1 the movie. Indeed, the Brad Pitt vehicle opened to 55 million and topped the charts this weekend. And that's exactly what we said up above. That's exactly what we said before. You moved from what made the first one good, the fact that it was a horror film, and you said, no, let's go sci-fi action, which is exactly what Terminator 2 was. I think you could even make an argument that the first Terminator film, I think some people, it would take a lot of convincing that could have been deemed a sci-fi horror. There is action, don't get me wrong, but I think Terminator 2 is far more sci-fi action than the first one could ever be deemed that. As always, a combination of factors likely to blame for M3GAN 2.0's surprisingly weak debut. The reviews didn't help, and many were turned off by the trailers for starters, but there's one primary question at the forefront of my mind today, and it's the question that everyone at Blumhouse must be pondering. Was it premature to consider M3GAN a modern icon? Yes, it never should have been considered an icon after one film. I don't think so. And I don't even think Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, I don't even think those after their first film at the time could be considered an icon. I think what made those icons is all the films that came after it, cherry picked and had a lot of inspiration from those films that made their film successful. And we've seen how those three characters have carried through the test of time with their fan base and as overall horror fans. M3GAN didn't give itself that. It literally said itself after the first film, oh, we made a great profit. Obviously an amazing profit off the first film. That doesn't automatically deem you as a horror icon in any way, shape, or form. So they set themselves up for failure on that. So the rest of this pretty much is a lot of what we've already talked about in other previous videos. Nothing more to talk about here. And it kind of just ends off with, and we have this poster here for M3GAN 2.0. So I want to quickly jump into the second article here. This is the other big mistake I was talking about. It's in the headline. We thought M3GAN was like Superman. Jason Blum shares honest thoughts on M3GAN 2.0 failure. That right there is your biggest problem. If you thought that this was comparable, or M3GAN was comparable to the likes of Superman, obviously not. It has nothing to do with horror, but just in cinema in general, you already should have thought to yourself, this is going to fail, and there should have been someone there to tell you this was a bad idea. And I'm sure he probably had a lot of yes people around him telling him, yeah, let's go the Terminator 2 route. Oh, we have this. I mean, look how much money we made with the first one. Everyone's going to love this. Nope. No one really loved it. And it doesn't seem like anyone's going to love it. So let's jump. We're going to cherry pick this article just for time's sake. But pretty much what the top piece already talks about is 2023 M3GAN, 180 million, Soulmate, January 2026. So as we continue to move on, it does talk about, again, what we already talked about, 10.2 million opening weekend. The first film had 30.4 million its opening weekend. Again, nothing we didn't already know. I want to get down to this next paragraph, which is more into the quotes. In a post-mortem interview with the podcast The Town that just released today, and this was article was as of late yesterday, Jason Blum shares his surprisingly honest thoughts about the box office failure of M3GAN 2.0, which Blumhouse was at point expecting to debut with upwards of 45 million. Wow, that's a big disappointment. And you only brought in 10. That tracking number went further and further down as the weeks went on, with the film ultimately debuting to the fraction of those early hopes. Blum is okay. Here we go to the quote. Blum admits, quote, "We all thought M3GAN was like Superman. We could do anything to her. We could change genres. We could put her in the summer. We could make her look different. We could turn her from a bad guy into a good guy." And we kind of classically overthought how powerful people's engagement was really with her. Your problem was all of those things. It wasn't the last problem. I don't think you overthought how powerful people's engagement was with her. It was the engagement with how she was and the character from the first film. And when you strip all that away and make her something completely different, and then on top of that, start comparing it to the likes of being like Superman, and as the previous article mentioned, like Terminator 2, where you can just switch genres completely, still thinking it's going to be a success. Those are your problems. Those are the mistakes you made. And apparently there was no one around you to tell you, no, this is a bad idea. And if there was, shame on you for not listening to them. So let's continue on. Everything I'm skipping past, we've already talked about already. So there's nothing new there. So again, I'm trying to just jump down into where he's being quoted. Blum continues, I think we're used to a market that can absorb 12 to 15 horror movies where you get these singles and doubles. I think that's gone. Maybe might come back, but who knows? But for now, I don't think the market can absorb as much horror as there is for sure. We're coming back to that. We'll never continues on. We'll never really know this movie didn't. We'll never really know why this movie didn't work. Blum ultimately admits. He notes at a different point, even if the financial results are not what we took a shot, right? We said we can take this horror movie and turn it into a crazy sci-fi action, whatever. And I think there's so much pressure on originals, and there's so many few originals that what I hope M3GAN does is it doesn't discourage other people who make sequels to now make them too close to the first. I think there's some sequels that are very different that do work. This one didn't have to be, but we took a creative risk, and I really hope that people continue to take creative risks within the walls of their franchises. Otherwise, the movies will feel all the same. I call BS on that completely, and that's where the article ends. So we're going to let's go back to this one, top one. I'm not in the business. I've never made a movie. I've never worked for a studio. So this is, just clearly my opinion as a horror fan. Saying that the fan base or the market can't absorb 12 to 15 horror movies, that I call BS. Horror fans like myself and others want more horror movies in the theaters. And we want to go and see more of them. The unfortunate part is studios don't put a lot of backing behind them, or don't put a lot of confidence behind them. And if they happen to, it's usually, again, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. It's these other, or Saw. I mean, that's another prime example. Scream. Apparently they have a lot of faith in the new I Know What You Did Last Summer Legacy sequel. If they're going to put a lot of hope behind those films, very established franchises, where you also then have some big name actors and actresses tied to those films and starring in them. With this one, what do you have? You don't have that. And you made all these other things that you outlined above that you changed from the first one. That's why the fans didn't gravitate towards it. That's why the fans didn't come out in droves to see it. So don't sit here and try to say, well, I don't think the market can handle so many horror films. I mean, we're already into July. How many horror films have we had in theaters already that have, really been true horror films? I wouldn't say we've had 12 to 15, not 12 to 15 that have been heavily backed by studio and marketing money. No, we have not. There's been plenty of like independent mid-level budget films that have made it to theaters, but they've been very small engagements, and they're getting digital releases on the same day. So you can't compare it to that either. So as he goes on to say that he doesn't want this to scare people away from doing a sequel, no, I don't think it's going to do that at all. I think people are going to look at this and say, yeah, let's not make that mistake. If we start off as a horror film, let's don't turn it into a sci-fi action, or let's don't turn it into an action comedy if the first film in our franchise is a true blue horror film. That's on you, homie. You made that mistake. No one, I think you will be a test case for people to look at in the horror space or any other space to say, if this is the original film we start off with and this is our character and we want to do a sequel, we can't just do all of these things. Let's look at M3GAN 2.0 and say these are the things not to do. That's what your film is going to do for people. It won't scare them away. It will give them a realistic view and be smart about how they handle a sequel, not how to handle a sequel. So that again, that's on you. Take the L, move on, but don't, in my opinion, this is my opinion, don't project your failure of a sequel to what was a successful first film to other filmmakers and think, oh well, hey, I don't want you to get scared. Don't, please move forward with your ideas and original ideas and this and that. I think that will happen. People will obviously do those things. And again, they'll look at M3GAN 2.0 and say what not to do when you do a sequel. So anyways, that's going to do it for this horror news update as it relates to M3GAN 2.0. I think it will probably, it's only been in theaters, not even a full 7 days, so a full week. I give it another week and a half, 2 weeks. It's going to be done, pulled. It's going to be kind of like what happened to Werewolf. It lasted 3.5 weeks in theaters, got pulled. Next thing you know, by week 5, it's already on digital. By week 6, 7, it's already on a streaming platform. That's what's going to happen to M3GAN 2.0 to try to make any potential money back. So drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think about M3GAN 2.0. Did you see it? Did you not see it? If you saw it, let me know what you thought of it. If you didn't see it, let me know if you're still planning on seeing it after hearing just how atrocious it is. And if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next one. Later.